All right. So we realize that everyone is kind of in some sort of a reconfiguration mode right now due to coronavirus, and a lot of you are out there scrambling to do everything that you can to be successful and also keep your business up and running. So we put together this presentation for you today to share some knowledge on Plex security. The intent of this is to help you make the adjustments you need during this uncertain time. There might be some of you out there who have employees working from home. Some of you might have had to furlough some of your employees. So this time today is going to help you navigate some of those issues that you might have, especially as they relate to security. As time allows during this crazy time, Control+M will continue to do sessions like this. So if you like what you see, let us know and we can add you to our mailing list. Feel free to reach out to myself or Jill and we'll get you on that list. Also, we would like to encourage you to share these sessions with anyone within your company or even some other Plex users that you might know. This is not just limited to Control+M customers. It's really just for the good of the whole of the Plex community. Once this session is done today, we will be posting it up on YouTube later on today and also have a link to it from our Control+M website so that you have a point of reference later if needed. So today we're going to talk about two different points of security. We're going to talk about contraction or taking away security from your users, and also expansion, which will be giving your users some additional security access that more than they already have right now. During this time, we'll take a look at both classic and UX environments. There might be a few things in this presentation that may work differently if you're an IAM user, but for the most part, everything that I show you today can easily be done regardless of your IAM status. IAM is kind of more of a session on its own, so if that's something you might be interested in, please let myself know or please let Jill know that as well, and we can get something together. So today, what we're going to review, we're going to look at some basic stuff in Plex. So we're going to look at how to change passwords. From there, we're going to talk about menu-based access in Classic and also screen access in UX. We'll also briefly touch on the login history screens in Plex. And then from there, we'll actually jump into Plex and start playing around with a few different screens. In Plex, I'll show you Vision Plex Security, how to add and remove some options within VP screens quickly in both Classic and UX. We'll also talk about workflow reassignments. And then at the end, we'll talk about position-based security in both Classic and UX. And again, just a quick reminder, please hold your questions for the end of the session. So why are we talking about security at this time? Again, we want to cover all those contraction and expansion items that might be out there. But security is going to help you have a protected work environment within Plex. So again, maybe you've had to lay off or furlough workers. You can set up security so that these users, just for the meantime, can't have access to your system. Security is also going to help control access and who has access to sensitive information that might be out there. And we can also limit users' actions. Since you might have some employees who are logging in from home, you can prevent them from seeing certain screens within Plex. You can prevent them from doing something like maybe cutting a check or playing around with some of that sensitive information that's out there. So we're just going to go ahead and dive right in here, and we're going to quickly talk about how to change passwords in Plex. So again, this can be a temporary password change for some of those users that are not currently working. So in Classic, in order to do that, what you're going to do is you're just going to go here into your user manager. You're going to find your user. When that submenu comes up, go ahead and click that change password link, and then you can create a new password for that user. This will prevent that user from being able to log in, and then when they come back to work, you can either give them that new password that you created or create a new one for them, or you can have them force a password change and have them update the password themselves to whatever it is that they might want. I will say at this time, if you are an IAM user, password changes will need to be completed through accounts.plex.com. over in UX, it's basically the same sort of a method here. You're going to go into your user manager, find the user that you want to update the password for, and then on the left side of that user detail screen, you're going to see that same submenu, and you're just going to click that change password link, and you can update that user's password that way. So from here, we're going to talk about menu-based access. We're going to start off here with Classic, and with Classic, there's 3 options to control your menus. You can control it by using permissions, you can control it by using passwords, and you can also control it by using IP addresses. When you are on a menu screen within Plex, I'm sure most of you know that you can hover over on that right-hand corner there and you'll get that little gear icon. If you click into that, that's going to bring you into your menu node detail screen. And in that security section down here, you're going to see those 3 different options, the permission, the password, and the IP address. So first things first, let's talk about the permissions method. So as you see here on this office menu that we have an accounting menu node. Before we add a permission to this node, you can see that that accounting menu is available for a user to click on. If we go within that node and we add a required permission, such as the accounting menu permission, and save it, only users who have that permission will be able to see that menu node. Now, if a user does not have that permission, as you'll see here, that menu has disappeared completely. So that's going to prevent that user without that permission from accessing any of your accounting information. Next up, we have passwords. So again, within that menu node detail, you can flag this verify password link right here. And then anytime somebody tries to get into, for this example, the accounting menu, they're going to have to enter their password. So this sort of a thing is good if you have general or generic users out there who are all using kind of the same login to get into the control panel, for example. Maybe those people aren't logging into Plex themselves. So if they try to access your accounting information, they're not going to know what the password is to get there. So that information there is then protected. The third and final way we can control menu node access within Plex Classic is by using valid IP addresses. What you would do here is just simply enter your IP address. Now this can be something like the IP address for your entire office building. And so anyone who's using that IP address would be able to access that menu. If somebody is with or is outside of that IP address, that access to that menu node is going to be taken away. This is primarily used for something like the accounting menu or even control panel access so that you can't have people logging in from home to the control panel. But I will say you can tighten this down a little bit more with some additional setup from Plex. This whole process can be a little tricky for non-IT professionals because there's a lot of moving parts here. There's a lot of different settings that have to be turned on, a lot of like individual user settings that you might have to enable as well. So if you want to see a separate session on how to set some of this up, again, please let us know and we can get something in the works. One final thing about these menu-based controls, if you have these set up in Classic and you're thinking about transitioning over to UX, anything that you have set up here is not going to translate into UX. So you'd have to set up some different types of security in UX to prevent people from accessing those menus. So while we're at it, let's just go ahead and talk about UX screen security. While in Classic, a lot of it is based off of permissions or even IP addresses, everything in UX is based off of actions. Actions can be given to individual users or security roles, I should say, and you can add or remove actions based on what you want people with that security role to see. So as you'll see here, on this screen, this user had access to the accounts payable menu. But if we go into the security roles manager and we remove those specific actions from that user in that security role, then that person's no longer going to be able to access the accounts payable screens. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about now is the login history screen. The login history screen is a fairly simple screen to take a look at. It's going to show you who from your company is logging in and when they've logged in. You can have people log in multiple times a day, as you might see here on this particular example. And you can look at different date ranges. You can look at individual users. You can look at who's logging in at different buildings. It's going to give you the date and time that they logged in. It's also going to show you the IP addresses from which those users logged in. And it's also going to give you that login origin. So you'll see here that a lot of our users are logged in using Cloud IAM. So you're either going to see them logging in through the IAM process that Plex has out there or through the traditional Plex login process. Again, this is kind of a good way for you to see who might be logging in from home, who maybe shouldn't be logging in from home. And it's just a good way to maybe even track, you know, who's doing what on what sort of a day. All right, guys, so at this point, I think we're ready to actually jump into Plex. We're going to talk about VisionPlex, workflows, and position-based security. So I'm just going to get out of here real quick. And we're going to start off in Classic. I just pulled up a random VisionPlex screen. So within this screen here, you see that we have different buttons up here at top that we can use. There's the search fields as well. So in this particular example, what I want to do is I want to remove this print button. I don't want anybody being able to print anything from this screen. Now, of course, this is a bit of an exaggerated example. Is it really a big deal if somebody prints out your PM checklists? Probably not, but again, just an example of how we can control this. So now that I'm in this screen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to my VisionPlex tools, and I'm going to enter design mode. Once you're here, you can select if you want to do an enterprise change, a change just for yourself, or a change for your whole company. Right now, I'm in company design mode. And for me to control access here to this print button, all I need to do is just double click that, and it's going to bring up a new window. And then right here, I have this visible field. So this is set to true. So this means that everybody who accesses this screen is going to be able to see that print button. To prevent them from seeing that button, all I need to do is just change this quickly to false. Another way you can limit who has the ability to print is with the security tab. And just like our menu nodes, you have the ability to select specific permissions, and only those people with those permissions will be able to view the print button or read it or do whatever else you might want them to do. So now that I've removed the visibility of that print button, I'm just going to update this real quick. And you'll see that the lettering here changed from white to black. So when I run this screen, that print button is gone. Over in UX, it's fairly similar. Again, we're going to get rid of that print button. So I'm going to go into my VisionPlex Designer. And I'm going to double click here on print. Oh, nope, we don't want to delete that. And then over here, I'm just going to remove that visible flag. Now I'm going to do a quick preview of what that screen is going to look like now. And you're going to see that that print button is now gone. Again, if you guys are interested in more VisionPlex content, my colleague Kevin Pope will be doing a session on simple VisionPlex screen changes on the week of April 27th. So if you're interested in that, please let us know and we'll get you on the list. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is workflow reassignment. So I'm going to head over to our workflow menu. And the workflow reassignments are basically for reassigning specific steps in a workflow from one user to another. Again, during this crazy time, maybe you have an employee who is not currently working and they are responsible for a couple of workflow steps. This is a quick way for you to reassign those particular steps to somebody else. So we're just going to go here into our workflow reassignment screen. And I'm going to select our ECR workflow here. I'm just going to do a search. And when I search, you're going to see that reassignment box pop up. And down here, you're going to see every single step that is associated with this workflow. So you can see here for these 2 steps, I'm currently assigned to them. I'm the one who's responsible for completing those steps of the workflow. If I need to reassign those steps, what I'm going to do is just select them. And then up here in this reassignment box, I'm going to use this reassign to dropdown. I can reassign my workflow steps to an individual user. I can reassign the workflow steps to a specific security role. So anybody who has that security role will be able to act on those workflow steps. I can assign it to an individual group, or I can utilize workflow specials. So in this example, I'm just going to use a different user, and I'm going to reassign those 2 steps to Jill. So I just select Jill's name here. If needed, I can add a note as to why I'm giving Jill the responsibility for those workflow steps. And then I can just press this reassign button up top. And you're going to see now that Jill is now responsible for those workflow steps. So anytime this ECR workflow reaches those steps, Jill's going to be notified and Jill's going to have to act on them. Over in UX, I'm going to go over to the workflow reassignment screen. And again here, you're going to search for your workflow. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select those 2 steps again, and I'm going to reassign them back to myself here. And then press OK. And the records have been updated. So now I'm again responsible for those workflow steps. All right, so the last thing I wanted to review with you guys was the position security role association options within Plex. And this is all done within this position security role association screen. This is essentially going to tie specific security roles to individual positions. So for example, if you have somebody who's in an accounting position, you can automatically grant them all the security roles and permissions that are out there and needed for an accountant just by adding their position into their user manager detail screen. In order to do this, you yourself, the Plex champion, will have to have administrator rights to every single security role that you have out there within your PCN. There's also some additional settings that need to be turned on. Those settings are called position role association use and existing roles overwrite. So I'm just going to do a quick open search here. And I'm going to select this operations manager position. So when I come into the security role screen, every single security role that I select here is going to be applied to this one position. So for an operations manager, we're going to say that we want to give them the engineering role. We're going to give them the everyone role. And let's go ahead and give them, we'll give them a tooling role, why not? So once we select all the roles that we need for that position, we'll just press the update button. And when we come back out to this screen, you're going to see those security roles that have automatically been applied to the operations manager. Now you can assign security roles to multiple positions, so it's pretty flexible in that sense. Once you have that security role association with your positions, you can then navigate over to the user manager. And I'm just going to search here for a test user real quick. I have a test user here, and I'm going to change their position from accountant to operations manager. And when I do this, I'm going to get a pop-up here. And Plex is going to ask me if I want to apply those security rules that I just selected to this operations manager position. So when I click yes, you're going to see that their security roles automatically changed. So you can do that for every single position that you have listed within Plex. Now this test user here has all the permissions that they need to do their job as an operation manager. In UX, it's pretty much the same thing there too. There's the Position and Security Roles Association screen. Just going to do an open search here. And real quick here, you'll see that I have an accountant position. And I've given this accountant position 4 different security roles. So now over in my user manager, again, we're going to pull up a test user. I'm going to change this over to accounting. And again, Plex is going to ask me to make sure that I want to make those changes. I'm going to press yes. And you're going to see here the security roles updated there as well. This is also a really good way for if you have somebody within your company who's either gotten a promotion to a new role or who's moved into a new role. This is a quick way for you to grant them access to everything they need to do their new job. So at this point, I'm ready to take any questions that you guys might have.
Hi, I have a question. Justin Moran with MPI. Are you aware of any Plex screens in UX that are not tied to an action? And if so, how is access granted or revoked from those screens?
That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure about any role or screens that are well, every screen is basically tied to an action. You need to provide somebody an action to access almost any screen within UX. A good way to do that is by using a screen called the Security Admin Manager. And I'm just going to go over, let's see, we'll go to the tool screen, for example. Up here in this gears icon, there's a link called Security Admin Manager. And if I click on that, it's going to give me every single action that is needed for somebody to either access or do specific tasks within that tooling screen. So you can grant actions that way. So for example, if I want somebody to actually have access to that tool screen, they're going to need this action here called tools.
Perfect. So that's just like the application setup link in Plex Classic.
Exactly, exactly. And the only thing is here, you have to do it by role. You can't just grant it to an individual user. So if I just type in a role up here, let's see what we have. No roles are showing up here. There we go. So I can just enable that for everybody within that accounting role.
Awesome. Yeah, that answers my question. Thank you.
Perfect. Yep.
I have a question or two. It's Jesse from Precision.
Hi.
For the password on the menu nodes, both within Classic and UX, when you apply the password to the menu node and then you use a menu search and the user clicks downstream from that menu node, upon that selection, does the user need to enter that password or does it bypass the password requirement?
Oh, that's a good question. I am not sure that. Patty, do you happen to know?
And then kind of on top of that, you can stack different menu nodes within each other within
Yep.
classes. And if you've done that and there has been more than one menu node stacked in that file structure that both require different passwords, how does the system respond to that type of interaction?
Understood. So are you saying like if you have
you have accounting and
accounting,
then you have admin, and accounting needs password ABC, and accounting admin needs password 123. If I do a menu search and the item node is underneath the accounting admin, and I select it, I'm guessing it bypasses the password?
I don't think so.
Danielle, sorry, I was
Yep,
double
go
muted.
ahead. Nope, you're fine.
So Jesse, if you have, let's say if you have accounting menu blocked and you have the accounts payable menu blocked underneath it and both require passwords, they're going to require the user passwords in there. So you'll probably have to enter it twice. I have not tested that on an IP restriction. And as I recall, you've got IP restriction on your PCN. So if you want after this call, you and I can connect up and test it out on yours, and we can leave it as a comment in the YouTube in the YouTube posting.
And then I have one other question about the security roles by association. If an employee is already in a position and I go and add additional security roles for that position, Plex does or does not automatically update those current employees on me adding those security roles to the position?
So are you saying like if you have an employee change from one position to another, is Plex going to still give them access to that old position?
No, in your example, whatever position you are currently in, you stay in that same position, but now I'm granting that position access to another security role as well.
Yep, correct.
It would grant it downstream?
Yes, it would. Yep.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions out there?
I have one question. You mentioned if you're changing passwords on users that have been converted to IM, you have to go to a different place to reset passwords?
Correct. If you have users or if your PCN has been converted to it be an IAM PCN, there is an additional Plex website called accounts.plex.com. And when you are within accounts.plex.com, you'll have access to all of your users and you'll be able to access their actual user records. And we'll go in there real quick and I'll just show you. Within this Plex identity management screen here, if you are a security contact in your PCN, you'll have access to this. And then I can go into my corporation here and I can look at a specific user. So if I go into Jill's record here, I can change her password myself right here.
Okay. All right, we have not been converted yet, but
okay. Yep.
Make sure before that happens.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot more that goes into the IAM setup and the conversion too. And again, if you want a session, if you want to see how that works, we can definitely do something. So.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, guys, so we do have another session coming up on April 22nd at noon, and that session is called Tips and Tricks for Making Plex Accounting Easier. Zach Farley from our team will be running the session, and he'll be going over some AP, AR, and costing items for you guys. If you're interested in this, go ahead and email Jill at Control+M Solutions, and she can reserve a spot for you.
Hey, sorry if it's not too late. I do have one more security question.
Sure.
Are you aware of any way to match up existing roles within Classic with actions that exist in UX? I understand that they are not exactly matched or mapped to each other, but do you have any resources or know of any for that type of transition?
So it's not really something that's, I don't want to say it's not possible. Basically what you would have to do in UX is create the security rules based on what you already have in Classic. There is kind of a standard procedure that Plex has out there, so you would have maybe 2 or 3 different levels of security for each module. So for example, you would have somebody who has, you have a level 1, and that level 1 access for accounting, for example, that level 1 access is only going to allow people to view accounting information. And then you'll have a level 2, which will allow people to view and to edit, add, update accounting information. And then you would have a level 3, which would give everybody, or that would give an individual access to view, edit, update, and then that final action of deleting information. So there's not really a good way to kind of melt the two together. You basically have to start fresh within UX.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Thank you so much.
Yep. All right, guys, if there's no other questions, I'd like to thank you guys all for attending and thanking you for your time for today. Wish you and your coworkers and your loved ones health and safety for a fast recovery for you and your business. And again, we'll be posting all of this, this video and some additional information up on our website, and we'll also have a YouTube video as well. And again, if you are interested in some additional sessions from us, or even if you have some ideas, please let us know and share this opportunity with others out there too. So just like PowerPlex and user groups, we want to share out with you how to do some of the basic stuff that's out there in Plex. And with that,
Thank you.
hope you all have a good day.
You too. Thank you.